Welcome to the Awakened Parent Project, conscious conversations, empowered parenting with me, Susan Dolci. It's time to open our hearts and our minds to what it means to be a parent, exploring and expanding the ways we communicate, validate, and show up daily for our kids. With a parent-centric focus, you learn to become more present, a better active listener, more reflective, more engaged, and mutually empowered. Parenting isn't about perfection. It's about presence, honesty, self-compassion, unconditional love, and conscious communication. The Awakened Parent Project starts now. Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to the first episode of the Awakened Parent Project. If you can't tell by my voice, I'm so excited. I'm your host, Susan Dolci, and this show is sort of a dream come true for me. I've wanted to have a podcast about conscious parenting for a really long time now, a place where we can have conscious conversations that empower parents and their children. The goal of this show is to help parents become more compassionate and engaged as we share the many techniques and ideologies of the conscious parenting community. I'm a life coach and I'm a student with the Jai Institute for Parenting, and it's my hope that you'll find this a safe space to journey on a path of both practical and spiritual self-exploration. From the time my first daughter was born in 1994, I'd been driven by a vision where children are nurtured, both physically and spiritually, by adults who are present, grounded, and empowered. I believe that conscious communication, self-exploration, and self-forgiveness are the tools that enable parents to foster deep, lasting connections with their children. Parenting isn't about perfection, right? I hope we all know that. It's about presence. It's about honesty, self-compassion, unconditional love, and conscious communication. And that's why I'm so excited to welcome my guest today, Rebecca Lyddon. Rebecca Lyddon is the Director of Education at the Jai Institute for Parenting and the founder of Family Unearthed. She is propelled by a vision whereby she sees children being cared for adults who are wise, healthy, free, creative, strong, brave, and bold. As a social worker, Waldorf educator, astrologer, 5 rhythms dance practice, playback theater, it's such a long, so many things, and lifelong child advocate, Rebecca is thrilled to integrate all of her skills as a certified parent coach and group trainer. When Rebecca is not engrossed in deep soul work, which I think she is, I've known her for a little bit now, and she's a very soulful person. She's laughing, dancing, singing, and celebrating her life with her beloved and their 2 children in Lawrence, Kansas. Welcome, Rebecca. I'm so
excited. I'm so happy.
And thank you for being my first guest on this new podcast that I have. This is a dream come true. I've wanted this a platform to talk about parenting for so long now.
And it's happening.
It's happening
right now. How amazing.
I know. Yeah. So today we're talking about not just strengthening our mindset as parents, like that's the head part, but 2 other important aspects that might get overlooked, especially because everybody's in their head and not in their bodies. And that's the hands and the heart of parenting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the things that I think you are like the queen of science. You're the science queen. I'm always blown away how articulate and knowledgeable you are in all of this, attachment science and nervous system science, which we're going to talk about today. Mm-hmm. But attachment science was kind of new to me. I started parenting in the 90s. And I know it was kind of around in the 1950s, but I think it might help just to for the grandmas and grandpas who might be listening, what is attachment science and why is it so important?
Well, your introduction answers your question, Susan, because you said parenting is not about perfection. It's about showing up and being present. And our attachment orientation determines the quality at which, as a parent, you show up for your child in times of joy, where you can rest in presence and connection, where you're not having to work in your parenting, you're being held by your parenting. You're being held by the intimacy that you and your child create the bond. And it's also the quality at which we show up when times are stressful and
Mhm.
challenging. It communicates to our nervous system, our limbic system, which is our brain. It communicates to our will to either show up or retract and run away. So when we understand the head, hands, and heart of attachment science, we have more coherency about why can I show up in these moments with my child, but I struggle showing up in these moments with my child. And with more coherency comes greater inner peace and choice.
Inner peace. Isn't that what every parent wants, right? So, but so much of what happens, and so there's attachment. This is what I've learned. We actually just talked about this today. There's the
We
attachment
did.
that we have with our caregiver, right? Which is,
Yes.
and that happens like in the first 10 months of life. And so,
Yes.
and then there's our attachment with ourselves in whatever circumstance we might be, whatever stressful situation we might be
Yeah.
in. And what I find fascinating about that is that so many of our reactions, we don't even know where that's coming from, because it was programmed in us when we were infants.
Infants.
Yeah. It really kind of like when we studied this, this was a huge forgiveness moment for myself. Yeah, because it was like, I mean, I felt like that I did everything possible to provide a secure attachment with my kids. I think
Yeah.
I did. I really believe that. But then there's always like, well, I don't know, like it was they're
Right.
10 months old. It was so long ago.
Right.
And then the other thing that I found fascinating is that I think it might get confused with attachment parenting,
Okay. Sure.
which is different.
Mhm.
So like Sears, what he was like published in 2000, I think. And that's like, so I know that was my goal, like, the bonding and the breastfeeding and the baby wearing and all of that. And that can also be kind of um, a hard expectation to live up to,
In our culture
Yeah.
of isolation. Yes.
Yeah. So what happens physiologically if we're not in a secure attachment in a situation?
Mm. So we discussed how the attachment system and the nervous system and the limbic system, which is the brain, are all working together unconsciously in split seconds. So those of us in the ethers listening to this podcast who are aware of a phrase called fight or flight, that's a more common, well-known nervous system science expression. Your body will go into this defense protection mode. So the heart of attachment science is believing that connection is what we seek when times are challenging. Connection is what we seek when times are peaceful. Connection is our lifeblood. It is our purpose. That's how we're biologically wired. But there are parents whose insecure attachment with that belief in their body and their brain, they find that connection, showing up, leaning in, getting close to the child, getting curious during times of challenge or joy is dangerous. It's not to be trusted. So we go into fight or flight. We go into my child is this and they're attacking me. We go into protection mode. We go into labels and judgments and fear and shame. We go into power over parenting as a way to keep ourselves safe from the threat of connection, which is so painful.
Well, and that's just those words, the threat of connection.
Isn't that? Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah, because you've said time and again that our greatest need is safety.
Yeah.
And so if connecting with somebody is not, even though we want that connection, it doesn't feel safe,
Right.
Now we're just locked in this battle.
We're locked in the middle world of I want to be parenting with connection. I want to be parenting with the relationship at the center. And when I try to do that, it awakens my most primal wounds that don't even begin in the first 10 months. They begin in utero. They begin in the way that mama shows up to womb, baby in womb or not. But with awareness, where we're just practicing, I'm having an avoidant attachment response. I don't want to go close to my kid right now because I am perceiving this as a threat. I want them to be the predator and I want to be the one who's being hunted right now. If you just have that dialogue, then it dissipates, it dissolves, and you can access presence and conscious choice again.
Yes, absolutely. It's again, I know I keep using the word fascinating, but it really is an opportunity to, not only get in your body, which we're going to talk more about, but just have an awareness of why you're reacting that way.
Right.
I was just meeting with a client before this show, and I said that one of my greatest aha moments was when I realized that when my oldest daughter, she was about 9 years old, and when she was getting sassy with me and she was like, saying all that, "I hate you, mommy, you're the worst mommy," all that, I was triggered, but it occurred to me that the trigger was from my ex-husband.
Sure. Very, very, very common.
Yeah, yeah, and so it was like, because I remember feeling like I feel like I'm living in that state of fear all over again because I don't know what to expect from this person,
Yeah.
this little human that I love to death, but I never know which version of you is going to show up in the car at pickup at school, and I was always like, just n total anxiety trying to figure out what was happening, um, and
Oh.
when so it was twofold. It
Mm.
was realizing what was triggering me, and
Yeah.
then being able to get to the root of
Yeah.
why she was acting the way she
Right.
was. Yeah,
Right. Going inward to the self first and then the child second.
yeah. We're going
Mhm.
to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk some more, but so much. Like I said, Rebecca's the queen of science, and we're going to talk about nervous system science too. You're listening to the Awakened Parent Project. I'm Susan Dolci, and we'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. You're listening to the Awakened Parent Project. It's the first show. I'm so excited. And today I am talking with Rebecca Lyddon. She is a parenting coach. She's also the director of education at the Jai Institute for Parenting. And before we get into more attachment and nervous system science, where can people find you?
Oh, where can you find me? I
Where
am
can
in
we
several
connect with you?
places on the internet. I have a website for my personal business, which is familyunearthed.com. And I have a Facebook and Instagram business page under the same name, Family Unearthed. And I'm also on the Jai Institute for Parenting. .com website where you can learn more about that work that I do in the world. I won't give you my phone number, but those are a few places that you
Yeah,
can find me.
that's great. And Rebecca is uh she's like Mother Earth.
Oh,
You are. You just have this like uh just this soulful maternal, I don't want to say grandmother willow, but you kind of get my
go ahead
feeling
and
like
say it,
the sort of vibe, and it's just wonderful. Yeah, I
Thank
just
you.
adore you. So we were talking about attachment science, and so what can parents who struggle, what can they
Mm,
do to feel connected and feel safe within their
yeah,
bodies? If you're having this, your kid comes home from school and they're screaming at you,
yeah.
and they're dealing with their thing and they're taking
Mhm.
it out on you, but now you're reacting.
Sure. So we go slowly in this process through the king and the other queen of science. I am but a subject in their court. Daniel Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson. They've given us a map of earning a secure attachment. So if you are a parent who resonates with when my child is struggling, I pull away. when my child is struggling, I go into I need to fix it mode. Or when my child's struggling, I'm furious and I'm going to let them know about it and I'm going to make them pay for it. Then we have a way home for you of being in inner safety, being in clarity of who you are, and being in relationship with your emotions and your ability to regulate your emotions and make conscious choice and communicate. I'll make this as simple as I possibly can, understanding that it's not a wand that you wave. It's a practice that you show up for every day, ideally with a wonderful parent coach like Susan to facilitate the process, because we need a witness when we're in the space of earning a secure attachment. So what I love about attachment science is that our history is not our destiny. We are malleable. We have neuroplasticity. Our biology can be refabricated based on the experiences that we have over time and repetition. Mm-hmm. So we have the 3 S's that Daniel Siegel and Tina Payne Bryson have taught us, which is, the first is safety. So we learn in our program together, Susan, of just learning how to find your calming sensory tool, learning how to bring yourself from, or I gotta run away, or I'm gonna attack somebody, back into, I don't have to do anything right now, but be present. It's all I have to do, and I'm safe and I'm secure. So there's a lot of different ways of finding, and it's through the senses. For me, when I'm overwhelmed or stunned, wanting to tell my child to, stop talking to me that way, or I want to jump out the window and get as far away from being a parent as possible, I have an anchor. So this is called an anchor. We can visualize literally dropping an anchor. Just boom, to the bottom of the ocean. You are rooted, you are planted, you are present. The second thing that I like to do of visualization is imagining myself as my own mother holding myself. Mm-hmm. So I wrap my arms around my body and I'll say something like, "You're safe." Mm. And I don't always say that out loud. Sometimes it's just the touch that communicates that safety. So this is the process of reparenting that some people may be aware of, where we earn that security in ourselves by giving what we didn't get as children to ourselves now. In my personal practice, I teach something called the inner infant. Mm. So because attachment wounds happen in utero or in the first 10 months of life, I'm a very visual person. So I have a guided visualization of us connecting with our inner infant, showing up to them. I have a picture of myself as an infant in a place that I see, and I can say, I see you, and I love you, and you're safe. And I'll visualize myself as an infant being held and cared for. That's not everyone's cup of tea. So there's a plethora of pathways to earn safety in your body. The second S of earning a secure attachment is seen. And this is being connected to our authenticity, connected to awareness of what is true, not through the lens of our perception, not through the lens of our pain, not through the lens of our unprocessed emotion, not through the lens of our labels, judgments, fear. It's truly tuning into what is actually happening in the moment. And because a lot of us were only seen as our behavior, we were only seen as our label as children, we come to identify ourselves and our children just at the surface. Mm-hmm. And we're learning how traumatic that is. How traumatic that is to only be seen superficially. It's gut-wrenching, it's soul-dividing, it's fragmenting. And we're practicing as a coach, that's the practice that we do, is helping clients move away from that fear-based self-perception, shame brain self-perception, into what is true, which is directly connected to having access to safety and presence, grounded security in your body. And then we're able to really see our children for who they are, not just their behavior, not our fears. The third S is soothed, where we are able to experience intense emotion without being attached to it. And I don't mean disconnected from it. I mean being the enlightened witness of it, of saying, "Woo, I've got anger roaring through my veins right now. How interesting is that?" I get to choose how I channel this. I get to choose how I communicate, and I get to choose how this impacts the situation. And then we understand that our children depend on our emotional intelligence, which does not exist in the brain, by the way. It exists in the heart center. It exists in our ability to feel our emotions with curiosity, with a longing to understand, with an ear tuned to receive their messages, and to facilitate that process for our children. That was a big answer for your question, which was, what do parents do? So I could solidify that, or you could reflect back.
Yes, I agree with everything that you said. Yes. So we we need to ground in presence. We need to feel seen, which means but was that we have to um, be the witness, our own witness, and then we have to find a way to soothe ourselves,
Yeah.
so that we don't lash out. I know one of the reasons I really want to be a parent coach and I'm doing this process is because I would much rather, um, uh, I would much rather work with a parent who's raising a little one to understand that, you know, the future, the inner child of the child who's just the inner child, than to work with an adult who's struggling. You know, I like to say it's like our, you know, we all, our inner child, our inner children, they're driving the bus for most of us, and they don't have a license. And so,
right. And they're blindfolded.
And they're blindfolded. And, you know, people don't realize that that's really what's driving, you know, our day in and day out connections with people and our interactions. And so one of my favorite things to tell my clients is that, you know, first thing in the morning to ask their inner child, what do you need from me today?
Yeah, exactly. Getting in tune with needs is a huge step.
You know, and maybe it's, I need a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or, or I just need to go play today, or, but I think one other aspect that I want to get into before we go into break is one of my favorite spiritual mentors. His name's Leonard Jacobson, and he has this hierarchy of what he thinks people need or children need, and the very first thing people or children need is presence.
Yes.
And then love.
Right.
Presence comes before love, and we've got this whole world of people who don't even know how to be present. And so I think, you know, that's where the training starts, is like, what does that mean to be present? Right. You know, can you sit out in nature and be present with, you know, a tree or a flower, or just understanding what it means to be present, I think is a huge struggle for so many people.
It's dangerous for so many people. Their brain, their body believes that to be present is danger, because to be present would be confronting all of the pieces of me that have had to become fragmented and disconnected. And the pain of that is too great. And I can't.
Yeah. But the beauty part also, the flip side of that, is that when you're present, there's no future and there's no past.
Sure.
And you're, you know, it's just now, and I'm just here now. And that can be scary, but at least you don't have to worry about the future or fret over the past.
It's ideal. Right. It's ideal.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to take another quick break. You're listening to the Awakened Parent Project. I'm Susan Dolci, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You are listening to the Awakened Parent Project. Say that 3 times fast. Am I popping in my mic? It's my first show. This is like where we have conscious conversations, and we're trying to empower parents. And today I'm talking with Rebecca Lyddon. She is the queen of of all things parenting. No, she is the director of the Jai Institute, director of education for the Jai Institute for Parenting, and she's also a parent coach. And we're talking about the head, the hands, and the heart of conscious parenting. And we were talking about attachment science and regulating. And now let's dive into nervous system science, which is equally as fascinating and complicated. And this is why I bow down to your knowledge.
And I bow down to Irene Lyon, who I have studied under. So I am of
She has great videos.
Yes.
She has awesome videos. Yes. If you are more curious about this when we're done here, head on over to her YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. I would you like me to just start talking about nervous system science?
Yes, please.
Yeah, let's do it. So that's such a big topic. Where do I start? Oh, I think
I was going to say, why does it matter in parenting? I mean,
right.
Why is it important?
Mm-hmm. Nervous system science, understanding the way that we work on a physiological level so we can understand what our children need from us and what appropriate expectations are of our children. So what we're learning is that our children are 100% dependent on us and our state of regulation at our nervous system for them to calm. So you may have heard you need to self-soothe, to inter-soothe, you need to anchor yourself in order for your child to be anchored. You may have heard phrases like a dysregulated adult cannot regulate a dysregulated child. So we're learning that it is our responsibility as a parent to anchor our nervous system into presence and safety so we can become our child's safe harbor. We want to be a soft place for our children to land. And with repetition, their nervous systems grow, develop, mature to a place where they are able to self-regulate as they get older. If they don't have the co-regulation with us throughout their childhood years, then these are people who grow up and struggle regulating in adulthood. And the pattern and the cycle continues of child is overcome with a hurricane and the parent falls into the hurricane.
I know that story.
Yep.
I have been there.
Yep.
And I was mentioned in break that I always kind of understood the idea of co-regulation. I always kind of understood that if I was flipping out, I was not going to be helping my child at all.
Yeah.
But it really hit home when my youngest was like 16 and having issues at school that were creating these horrible anxiety attacks for her and not knowing how to process that emotion in her body. And like I said, it was like a 3-year-old tantrum in a 16-year-old body. And she was just as horrified and to be having, like not knowing what to do. And just having to, for myself, just getting super present, just, looking her in the eye as best I could, trying to, touch her in ways that were soothing for her and just not saying anything, just being there. And that was scary. It was scary. But it worked. And I learned a lot in that, 10, 15 minutes of how my being calm helped her move through that emotion.
Right. Exactly. And as children, if we were not co-regulated with, we have something called neuroception, which are these little fibers that are always scanning the environment. Is this environment safe or dangerous? And so we come to see our children's emotions and process as dangerous, as scary, as something to not go into or not even allow. And so what I want to be very clear on for anyone listening is that regulating, co-regulating with a child, intersoothing with a child is not about making the tantrum stop.
Right.
It's not about making the emotions go away. It's not about controlling the way it's expressed. It's about bringing connection back into the child and yourself and the bond. It's a belief that we're here, we got this, we're safe, we're going to survive this experience. These emotions will not kill you, and we're going to get through it together. That is if we're talking about a hierarchy of needs, that's the presence.
Mm-hmm.
Nervous system science helps us understand how to heal our nervous system so we can be present in the times that matter the most with our children.
So I was just talking about this a couple hours ago with a friend of mine, and I think we gravitate. So if our child is having an episode and they're, tantrum, whatever, or they're, flailing, trying to hit, they just have this aggression, that needs a place, and that how we that aggression is healthy. Aggression is good, and we want all of the emotions to be accepted. There's no bad emotion, there's no good emotion, and that this aggression doesn't need to feel shameful for the child. Because I think that's, to me, from my experience, that's one of the emotions that gets shamed the most. Like, what is wrong with why does my kid want to hit other kids, or why is my kid hitting me? And it's like, it still needs its expression. So whether it's like, I don't know, sports or a punching bag, or I mean, what do you suggest in those moments where it's like, you don't want to label the emotion as bad, but the child needs to process it? God knows we have a planet full of people who don't know how to process their emotions. And so we all get sick.
And we have a planet full of violence.
And violence.
So let's get curious about this.
Yeah.
We have a generational pattern for centuries of children being punished for their aggression. How is that working for us as a species?
Yeah, not very well.
No. So when our children are hitting, screaming, using profanity, saying I hate you, biting, spitting, scratching, punching, whatever it is, ideally, my response here when I have a client ask me, well, what am I supposed to do when fill in the blank? My response is, you anchor. You get present, you show up, and you give them your safety. Second, we're wanting to provide a safe space for them to get out whatever they need to. When I was pregnant, I had a mentor who told me every time my child was dysregulated and disoriented and having huge expression, we had a room in our home of pillows, and we would just go in there. It was a yes zone. They could just get it out without any judgment, any story, nothing attached to the behavior except for this is normal and this makes sense. And not everyone has a pillow room. But ideally, we're in a looking and perceiving our child as, this makes absolute sense why you're having this experience. This is absolutely biologically, intrinsically normal. This is exactly how you are wired. This is how you were made as a human, was when you are perceiving danger or threat, when your nervous system is on fire, you are trying to get yourself safe. You're trying to protect yourself. And my job is to show you that you are safe. And our children feel safe when we're present, when we see them without judgment, and we feel safe with their emotion and their expression.
Yeah. Yeah, I say a prayer for that, because that's why I want to do this work. I'm just super passionate about not just raising good humans who, are not not living in a place of judgment and comparison. And like, it's for the children. And,
Yeah.
and it's, I believe, we're paving a way for the change makers,
Mhm.
and that would be my grandchildren.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
I know. I mean, yeah, I'm just gonna get all emotional, so I'm just gonna stop talking
Yeah.
about it. This is a good
Mm.
time to take one more break, our last break, while I gather my emotions because I am so
Ah.
freaking passionate about this.
Mhm.
When we come back, we're going to probably not give enough time to emotional intelligence because that is super, super important. But we're going to take
Mm.
another quick break. And when we come back, we will touch on emotional intelligence. You're listening to the Awakened Parent Project, and we'll be back in a little bit. Everybody, we are back. This is the Awakened Parent Project. I'm Susan Dolci, and today I'm talking with Rebecca Lyddon, all things attachment science, hands, head, heart of parenting. And we've covered attachment science and nervous system science. And like I said, we're probably not going to have enough time as much time as we should to talk about emotional intelligence and mindset barriers. So how do mindset barriers impact our secure attachment to ourself and our children and and emotional intelligence? Like, it's all one package.
Oh my goodness.
I know that was a loaded
Yes.
question, wasn't it?
Well, that's the second S of secure attachment, which is being seen. And how
Mhm,
do we see ourselves? What are the beliefs that we have about ourselves? What are the um, conclusions that we have had to make about what is true of who we are and the world and relationships based on our childhood experiences and our intrinsic need to survive and belong? So we're learning that as children, especially raised in the power over paradigm, we will forego our authenticity in the name of survival and belonging. We will do whatever
mhm,
it takes as a species to secure our safety, our inclusion, which means shutting off 95% of who you are and pigeonholing yourself into the perception that your parent has of you. And
mm,
remember that we've lived so long with parents only seeing the surface, only seeing the behavior. So we reduce ourselves to a shell, and then we show up in our parenting, and our children show us their full authenticity. They come blazing. And that's incredibly, the word, triggering is a word around
mhm,
this. It's incredibly painful. It's enraging. It's full of grief and heartache and agony for a parent to witness. And so, working with a parent coach who is trained in the ability to differentiate a fear based, shame based self perception from the prefrontal cortex, from the ventral vagal state of the nervous system, what are those words? Which is presence, truth, and safety. That's what we're wanting to bring parents into. It's
mhm,
really being able to have a mindset that's coming from truth, presence, and safety, so you're able to walk through your parenting challenges with that ability to say, what is actually true here? And what are my choices? What's possible here? That's
mhm,
where we're going to access a willingness to collaborate with our children, to problem solve, to get creative, to be innovative, to look at things in a way nobody's ever looked at it before, because you and your child have never existed before. We get to create our parenting based on what is true in our intimacy, sovereign being to sovereign being. That's mindset. How does that relate to emotional intelligence? Oh my goodness. Well, having a mindset that's rooted in safety and presence and truth, first of all, it feels amazing. And
yeah.
that opens up our ability to connect heart to heart with our child. That's joy. That's ecstasy. It's play. It's the ability to feel deeply with our child and feel so bonded with them. And this is our ability to be in our body at all, that we teach something called the FEEL acronym, which is informed by nervous system science. And also Mark Brackett, the author of Permission to Feel, of Susan David, the author of Emotional Agility, all of these thought masters in the emotional intelligence, body intelligence, because emotional intelligence is not your brain, the Heart Math Center.
That's fascinating. Oh, in and about
Yeah,
itself is heart math. Man, that's
yeah.
that's some big stuff.
Isn't it? Yeah, ground me here, Susan. I'm on a tangent. I'm getting a little lost in
Well,
myself.
um, here's the thing that about emotional intelligence. I remember um, my oldest was in first grade or something like that, and she's still one of my dear friends. We were at a party and we were having a discussion. I was talking with her husband, and he's still one of my best friends. And we kind of got into because I didn't know anything about emotional intelligence back then, and we kind of got into argument over what was more important, IQ or EQ. And he was like, well, all of my children are going to have a very high EQ and it's more important than IQ. And I was like, yeah, okay, EQ is important, but IQ. And we just went back and forth. And now, all these years later, I do realize that I was coming from a place of, the whole time I was raising my children, from empathy and using mindsight and trying to see what it felt like for my kid. And the funny thing is about that, at least for me, is that is not to get sucked into it and feel like the teenager all over again, or feel like the middle school kid all over again.
Yeah.
Because we love our kids so much, and not to go into fix it mode. And that, for all of the people who are listening, parents of adult children, that's how you survive adult children, is you stop fixing
And
and you say,
advising. Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
like, so we have a thing in our family where we say, do you want me to listen, or do you need me to fix something? Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they just need you to fix something.
Mm,
And so now my kids, like, they'll text me, or like, I'm just venting. Okay. And I'll
okay.
just sit here and listen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Mm,
it sets up really good, healthy boundaries for, adult kids.
right. So emotional intelligence is also having emotional boundaries, being able to
Mhm.
communicate what it is you want, need, how you feel, how you long to be heard. And it's empathy for the self. I know we talked about this before in our class, Susan, of emotional enmeshment,
Mhm.
where it's really hard to have empathy for your children without it coming from true self empathy, because then you get sucked in and you burn out. You're
Mhm.
giving your children empathy, but it's not happening from presence. It's
Right.
happening from that fear center and your own emotion
Right.
from childhood, right?
Yeah, totally.
That's
And you totally
interesting.
get triggered
Yeah.
and dare I say, sucked into it. Because I, at one point, I remember in class where I said something like, uh, I adore my youngest daughter, but I felt like she
I
was an
remember
energy
that.
vampire. Yeah. And you're
Right.
like, maybe. And I was like, but it was me, like, because
Mm,
I wasn't setting a
right.
boundary
Right.
and taking care of myself. I was just like, again, it's our child. I was just like, here, take it, take it all from me, if it's going to make you
Mm,
feel better. And all that does is leave us burned out and exhausted
mm,
and depleted, and
right.
then, trying to find ways to fill up. um but ah Rebecca, this has been great. Are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share before we wrap this up?
So many. I have so many final thoughts. What my experience of working with parents from all over the planet is the overwhelm that they can feel hearing this information,
Mhm.
learning new things. It can be both fascinating, like you say, Susan, that's your word, and inspiring, and it can also be overwhelming. And My longing for any person wanting to step closer to feeling safe in their body, feeling true in their mind, and feeling full in their heart is to receive my invitation to go slowly in this work and to have a generational mindset. Even if all that changes in your family in this lifetime is you're able to say, would you like me to hear you or would you like me to fix it? If that's just this one little tweak that you make in your parenting, understand that you are of a lineage and you are passing down this work imperfectly to the next generation, and they will continue it. You don't have to eradicate all cycles and patterns in your family on your own in this lifetime. This is bigger than you. Do what you can, step up in the way that you can. You're human, you're going to mess up, you're going to be tired, you're not going to be able to do it every day, but trust that it's going to keep going.
It's a legacy. Yeah.
It's a legacy.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you so much for doing my first show. I'm so
I
grateful.
feel so honored.
So much about being a better parent is about self-love, self-care, and self-compassion. You can't give your family anything from an empty cup. Putting yourself last doesn't make you a good mom. It just makes you a tired mom. If you head on over to my website, susandolci.com, you'll see 3 circles. And if you click on the 3rd circle, you can download your Journey to Self-Love workbook. It's a 30-page self-guided study that asks the questions to help you discover what's working and what's not working in your life right now. So I hope you check that out. Please remember, and I stole this end of this line from Rebecca, please remember, parenting isn't about perfection. You're human. That's impossible. Conscious parenting is about allowing your children to be your awakening.
Oh.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for being a part of the Awakened Parent Project. My goal with this show is to help us all become more compassionate and engaged parents by diving into the many techniques and ideologies of the conscious parenting community. This is a safe space to embark on a practical and spiritual journey of self-exploration and expand our ideas about conscious parenting. Got thoughts, questions, ideas? I want to hear from you. Reach out to me if there's a topic you'd like to hear covered on the show or to share your conscious parenting story by visiting susandolci.com.